Hello to you. Good morning. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. This is Bookeemonsters. My name is PK and it is Friday, December 29th. Only a couple more days left in 2023. Are you excited about that? Are you sad about that? I'm ready to look 2023 in the rearview mirror. It was a tough year. I'm looking forward to moving ahead. But today we're going to be looking at, no, we're not going to be looking at new releases. We're going to be looking at the books for if you want to participate in the Bookeemonster Mid-Winter HistMyst Readathon. That is reading historical mysteries. If you've never tried them before, we'll be looking at some options. If you've read them before, it's been a while, ready to jump back in that pool. Historical mysteries are my favorite of all the genres, and the options are vast from beginning of time to, I guess they're calling the 70s and 80s historical, which is wrong and sad, but they can be wrong and sad. All righty, so let me get rid of this banner. Quick announcements: no sprints tonight. I don't do sprints on Fridays, but I do sprints tomorrow, Saturday afternoon at 1 p.m. Mountain Time, 3 p.m. Eastern, and those go for 5 hours. I haven't decided yet about the morning show on Monday, New Year's Day. It definitely won't be this early if I do it, but I haven't quite decided yet. Let me get rid of this banner. All right. So you might be wondering, where can I look to find historical mysteries? Couple options. A great resource if you've not encountered it yet is stopyourkillingme.com. This is a database for mysteries, and it's just spelled correctly, stopyourkillingme.com, but there's no spaces between the words there. And one thing that it's not 100% comprehensive of all the mystery books and authors out there, but it is a very good resource. So if you look over on the left-hand side, about midway down is a tab called Historical Index. And if you click on that, it breaks the historical period into different segments, starting with ancient, which is before 476 AD. Oh man, historical. They're going up to the 1990s. Oh, that just hurts. But it's okay. We'll be okay. So then from there, you can just click on, well, I'm more interested in books about the Regency, so shall we say. So you click on the 1800s, and then from there, they've got different authors listed alphabetically who have covered that time period. And then it has a little description of who the crime solver is. And then from there, you can click on, let's choose Will Thomas randomly. His main character is Cyrus Barker, who is a private detective, and his assistant, Thomas Llewellyn, an ex-student and ex-thief in Victorian London, England. So you click on that, and that brings you to the author page. And this shows the books that are out so far in this series. It is pretty up to date. Occasionally, it's not up to date, but it also indicates which books have been awarded or been nominated for awards, which is also helpful. And then sometimes it will have a link to the author's website if you want to find out even more. So again, that's stopyourkillingme.com, which is a very good resource if you've not encountered that one before. So next up, I don't know, you'll have to give me some feedback if it actually worked or not, but my Amazon page that I have collected a bunch of historical mysteries I've made public. So I think you can go on Amazon and search for it. It is called Bookeemonsters HistMyst. And from there you can click on things. But this is where I'm collecting options that I've enjoyed. I have read a lot of historical mysteries. Um, I fell in love with them in the early 2000s, so I've been reading them for like 20 years now. So I have read a lot of the series, um, but there's so much more. I mean, that's the wonderful thing about this subgenre. I love it so much. So we last week ended, I believe, on Stephanie Barron's series with Jane Austen. So just collecting some more. These aren't in any necessary order at this point. And we're going to be jumping around in different time periods. Again, no order. This is one I have enjoyed in the past. I believe she's done writing this one, so there's only going to be 7 in this series. This is by Ashley Weaver, and she has written other series. This is the Amory Ames mystery series, starting with Murder at the Brightwell. And this is set in the 1930s, between the wars in England, which I really enjoy. And she is a wealthy young woman. So, Amory Ames, a wealthy young woman questioning her marriage to her notoriously charming playboy husband Milo, is looking for a change. She accepts a request for help from her former fiance, Gil Trent, not knowing that she'll soon become embroiled in a murder investigation that will not only test her friendship with Gil, but will also upset the status quo with her husband. Amory accompanies Gil to the luxurious Brightwell Hotel in an attempt to circumvent the marriage of his sister Emmeline to Rupert Howe, a disreputable ladies' man. There is more than her happiness at stake, however, when Rupert is murdered and Gil is arrested for the crime. Matters are further complicated by Milo's unexpected arrival, and as the line between friend and foe becomes less clear, Amory must decide where her heart lies and catch the killer before she too becomes a victim. I have enjoyed that series. This next one, I have not personally read it. I do own these books. It's one of those that's on my TBR. This is The Right Sort of Man, is the first book of 6 so far in the series by Alison Montclair. This is the Sparks and Bainbridge series. This is in post-World War II London. In a London slowly recovering from World War II, 2 very different women join forces to launch a business venture in the heart of Mayfair, the Right Sort Marriage Bureau. Miss Iris Sparks, quick-witted and impulsive, and Mrs. Gwendolyn Bainbridge, practical and widowed with a young son, are determined to achieve some independence and do some good in a rapidly changing world. But their promising start is threatened when their newest client is found murdered, and the man arrested for the crime is the prospective husband they matched her with. While the police are convinced they have their man, Miss Sparks and Mrs. Bainbridge are not. To clear his name and to rescue their fledgling operation's reputation, Sparks and Bainbridge decide to investigate on their own. Little do they know that this will put their very lives at risk. Interesting concept. That I mean to read. This series I have read so far, there's only 3. She has gone on. This is by Colleen Cambridge. She has another we'll probably look at later, if not today, then another time, with Julia Child as the tangent character. In this one, the tangent character is Agatha Christie. This is Murder at Malawan Hall. Tucked away among Devon's rolling green hills, Malawan Hall combines the best of English tradition with the modern conveniences of 1930. Housekeeper Phillida Bright manages the large household with an iron fist in her very elegant glove. In one respect, however, Malawan Wall stands far apart from other picturesque not enough coffee. Country houses, for the manor is home to archaeologist Max Mallowan and his famous wife, Agatha Christie. Phillida is both loyal to and protective of the crime writer, who is as much friend as employer. An aficionado of detective fiction, Phillida has yet to find a gentleman in real life half as fascinating as Mrs. Agatha's Belgian hero, Hercule Poirot. But though accustomed to murder and its methods as frequent topics of conversation, Phillida is unprepared for the sight of a very real, very dead body on the library floor. Reese Bowen is a very big name in mystery world. Her one of her first series was the Molly Murphy series, and I read this several years ago, but I plan to reread this because I didn't get very far in this series. So I plan to reread it at some point. There's 20 books in this series um, as a memory refresher because it's been so long. The first book is Murphy's Law. Molly Murphy always knew she'd end up in trouble just as her mother predicted. So when she commits murder in self-defense, she flees her cherished Ireland under cover of a false identity for the anonymous shores of America. When she arrives in New York and sees the welcoming promise of freedom in the Statue of Liberty, Molly begins to breathe easier. But when a man is murdered on Ellis Island, a man Molly was seen arguing with, she becomes a prime suspect in the crime. If she can't clear her name, Molly will be sent back to Ireland, where the gallows await. So, using her Irish charm and sharp wit, she escapes Ellis Island and sets out to find the wily killer on her own. Pounding the notorious streets of Hell's Kitchen and the Lower East Side, Molly undertakes a desperate mission to clear her name before her deadly past comes back to haunt her new future. And this is the other series by Colleen Cambridge I mentioned with the Julia Child. And this one's been very popular recently. So far, there's only two, but she just started this series. First book is Mastering the Art of French Murder, an American in Paris mystery series. As Paris rediscovers its joie de vivre, Tabitha Knight, recently arrived from Detroit for an extended stay with her French grandfather, is on her own journey of discovery. Paris isn't just the city of light, it's the city of history, romance, stunning architecture, and food. Thanks to her neighbor and friend, Julia Child, another expat who's fallen head over heels for Paris, Tabitha is learning how to cook for her grand-père and Uncle Rafe. Between tutoring Americans in French, visiting the market, and eagerly sampling the results of Julia's studies at Le Cordon Bleu cooking school, Tabitha's sojourn is proving thoroughly delightful. That is, until the cold December day they return to Julia's building and learn that a body has been found in the cellar. Tabitha recognizes the victim as a woman she met only the night before at a party given by Julia's sister, Dort. The murder weapon found nearby is recognizable too, a knife from Julia's kitchen. So that book is bringing more attention to this author, which I think is great. Authors need more attention. Hi, Anita from South Africa. Thank you so much for stopping by. We are looking at historical mysteries. Sorry, coffee was required. In January, I'm hosting a readathon to promote historical mysteries because they're my favorite subgenre, and we're just kind of looking at some options I've either read or want to read. Next up, the series by Victoria Thompson. This is the Gaslight Mysteries. 27 in this series. She is still writing it. The first one is Murder on Astor Place. After a routine delivery, Sarah visits her patient in a rooming house and discovers that another boarder, a young girl, has been killed. At the request of Sergeant Frank Malloy, she searches the girl's room. She discovers that the victim is from one of the most prominent families in New York and the sister of an old friend. The powerful family, fearful of scandal, refuses to permit an investigation. But with Malloy's help, Sarah begins a dangerous quest to bring the killer to justice before death claims another victim. That was this one, Murder on Astor Place. a good place to jump in. Anita, what's your favorite kind of book to read? Do you prefer mysteries, romance, sci-fi, fantasy? Of course, Anne Perry, a very huge name in mystery circles. She has multiple series. This is one of the first and one of my favorites, the Monk series. There were 24 in this series. She passed away, I believe it was last year. So there will be no more. So the first one is The Face of a Stranger. His name, they tell him, is William Monk, and he is a London police detective. But the accident that felled him has left him with only half a life. His memory and his entire past have vanished. As he tries to hide the truth, Monk returns to work and is assigned to investigate the brutal murder of a Crimean War hero and man about town, which makes Monk's efforts doubly difficult since he's forgotten his professional skills along with everything else. I remember when that first came out, it was such a dang it, I keep forgetting to share this. It was such an interesting character concept. He has amnesia and still trying to do his job. Adventure murder, very nice. And Anne Rice, there you go. One of my favorite series. She stopped writing this for some reason, or it's been a very long time since she's written one. It looks like I first read this in 2010. This is the Regency series by Anna Dean. And the first book is Belfield Hall. 1805, an engagement party is taking place for Mr. Richard Montague, son of wealthy landowner Sir Edgar Montague, and his fiancée Catherine. During a dance with his beloved, a strange thing happens. A man appears at Richard's shoulder and appears to communicate something to him without saying a word. Instantly breaking off the engagement, he rushes off to speak to his father, never to be seen again. Distraught with worry, Catherine sends for her spinster aunt, Miss Dido Kent, who has a penchant for solving mysteries. Catherine pleads with her to find her fiancé and to discover the truth behind his disappearance. It's going to take a lot of logical thinking to untangle the complex threads of this multi-layered mystery, and Miss Dido Kent is just the woman to do it. If you don't want to commit to a multi-book series and like the Regency era, that is a good one. Deanna Rayburn has made her name now, which is fantastic. She does the Veronica Speedwell series, which we've talked about previously. But she started with the Lady Julia Gray series. The first book in this series is Silent in the Grave. Let the wicked be ashamed, and let them be silent in the grave. These ominous words are the last threat that Sir Edward Grey receives from his killer. Before he can show them to Nicholas Brisbane, the private inquiry agent he has retained for his protection, he collapses and dies in his London home, in the presence of his wife Julia and a room full of dinner guests. Prepared to accept that Edward's death was due to a long-standing physical infirmity, Julia is outraged when Brisbane visits and suggests that her husband was murdered. It is a reaction she comes to regret when she discovers damning evidence for herself and realizes the truth. Determined to bring the murderer to justice, Julia engages the enigmatic Brisbane to help her investigate Edward's demise. Dismissing his warnings that the investigation will be difficult, if not impossible, Julia presses forward, following a trail of clues that lead her to even more unpleasant truths, and even closer to a killer who waits expectantly for her arrival. And another series, one of her very first, by Anne Perry, is the Charlotte and Thomas Pitt novels. There are 32 in that series. It started with the Cater Street hangman. Panic and fear strike the Ellison household when one of their own falls prey to the Cater Street murderer. While Mrs. Ellison and her three daughters are out, their maid becomes the third victim of a killer who strangles young women with cheese wire, leaving their swollen face bodies on the dark streets of this genteel neighborhood. Inspector Pitt, assigned to the case, must break through the walls of upper class society to get at the truth. His in depth investigation gradually peels away the proper veneer of the elite world, exposing secrets and desires until suspicion becomes more frightening than truth. Outspoken Charlotte Ellison, struggling to remain within the confining boundaries of Victorian manners, has no trouble expressing herself to the irritating policeman. As their relationship shifts from antagonistic sparring to a romantic connection, the socially mismatched pair must solve the mystery before the hangman strikes again. And we'll probably have time for one more. This is another one that I have not read, but is on my TBR. Looks like I first got this book in 2019. So much to read. So this is a series by A.M. Stewart. It's a Harriet Gordon mystery. The first book is Singapore Sapphire. Singapore, 1910. Desperate for a fresh start, Harriet Gordon finds herself living with her brother, a reverend and headmaster of a school for boys in Singapore at the height of colonial rule. Hoping to gain some financial independence, she advertises her services as a personal secretary. It is unfortunate that she should discover her first client, Sir Oswald Newbold, explorer, mind magnet, and president of the exclusive Explorers and Geographers Club, dead with a knife in his throat. When Inspector Robert Curran is put on the case, he realizes he has an unusual witness in Harriet. Harriet's keen eye for detail and strong sense of duty interests him, as does her distrust of the police and her traumatic past, which she is at pains to keep secret from the gossips of Singapore society. When another body is dragged from the canal, Harriet feels compelled to help with the case. She and Curran are soon drawn into a murderous web of treachery and deceit and find themselves face to face with a ruthless cabal that has no qualms about killing again to protect its secrets. And that is all we have time for today. We will be looking at those again next Friday. And it'll be January and the beginning of the actual readathon. That is the Mid-Winter HistMyst Readathon, which is promoting reading historical mysteries. All righty. Well, I appreciate you stopping by. Thank you, Anita. And oops, that's the one I need. And anybody who is going to be watching later, thank you very much. Again, next reading sprints will be tomorrow afternoon at 1 p.m. Mountain Time, 3 p.m. Eastern. It'll go for 5 hours. Bring your own book, work on a project like I'll be doing, or just have it in the background as you're being productive or closing your eyes, relaxing for the weekend. If I don't see you, I hope you have a very good New Year's. And remember, if you are reading something you're not liking, it's okay to set it aside for now. You don't get good person points for struggling through something you're not liking. I give you permission. There's too many books out there to be reading something you're not enjoying. Reading is fun. And as the banner says here, don't be a bookworm, be a bookie monster. Nom nom nom. Have a good Friday. Thank you and God bless.